Hello and welcome to episode 3 of my Javascript Noob to Pro tutorial series. In this episode we're going to be looking at using a real world scenario and we're going to validate a form. So let's have a look at what we've got here. So we've got a basic form here just with the basic HTML already laid out. We've got a name field here, which is just a text field. We have a text area field called comment, and we have a number field that is still actually just a text field. Just for this example. So let's have a look and see what that looks like. Very basic, let's just take that out of there. No styling on it, but it does the job for what we need. So let's come back to this. Right, so first of all what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to say, is the name field empty on submit? So let's add our script tags here. Right, now last time we had a look at on click. So we would have put on click onto the submit button. But that's not what we're doing here. We're saying on submit of this form. So we do on submit, and then we're going to create our function. So let's call it validate form, and then we're going to call it down here, function validate form. Put curly braces in there. Right, now what we're going to want to do is we're going to get the value of this input field. So let's say document dot get element by ID name. Now last time we did an inner HTML, but this time we're actually getting the value of an input field, so we do dot value. And let's console log this as well. So console.log, just round there. Right, now what's going to happen if we submit this form is it's going to console log this, and then the form's actually going to submit, and it's going to cause the page to refresh, so we're not actually going to see this. So what we need to do to prevent that is we need to call event.preventDefault. So we'll do event.preventDefault just there, and then we'll return false as well, because we don't want the form to submit. So what we need to do as well is pass the actual event down. So we type event there, type event here, so we can pass that down. So this is saying on this event, we're not setting this to anything, this is just like a built-in function. So pass the event of this on submit down to here, and then on that event we're going to prevent default and return false. So that'll stop the form from submitting, and then we can see this console log. So let's make sure that works. So it doesn't matter if we put anything in at the moment, it's going to stop the form and it's going to echo that out there. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to put in an if statement to say if it is empty, then prevent the form from running. If it's not, then let it pass. So let's just take this console log out for now. And up here we're going to put in if, like that, and then we're going to put our curly braces in there. So we'll just take this value here, put that in here, and because it's not the end of the line we're going to take off our ending semicolon there. Now what we need to do is we need to say, is it equal to an empty string? So you're going to put double equals this time, and then you're going to put in just 2 quotes there. You could use double quotes, but I tend to use single quotes when I'm doing this. So yeah, you'll see that we've got 2 equal signs here rather than 1. Now the way this works is that if you were assigning that this value to this, you would use a single equal. So if you were setting a variable, or yeah, just assigning that value to this, then that's what you'd use there. But we want to say, is this equal to that? We are comparing this side to that side, and that's where the double equals comes in. So just keep that in mind. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to take this here, and we're going to put it up here. Just get rid of some of this dead space here. So let's see if that works. We'll refresh the page, take this value out there, click submit, and you can see that it's not refreshing the page. If we click submit now, it's done the get request, it's passed those values through, and it's refreshed the page. So now we're starting to get somewhere. Problem is, if this is empty, you can't tell what's going on. You don't know that it's trying to validate the form and that it's not passing. So we need to display an error message to the user. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into the HTML and we're going to add a div tag, and we're going to give it an ID of name error. We're just going to leave it empty for now, because what we're going to do is we're going to say on error on this failing, we are going to say add some text to this error field here, and then prevent the form. So document.get element by ID. Not spelled that right. Document. There we go. Get element by ID. Name error. And then we're going to set the inner HTML like we did last time in the last previous episode. So inner HTML, and this is where we're going to use a single equals because we're setting the inner HTML. We're not comparing anything. And we're going to say name field must not be empty, and then we'll put our semicolon at the end there. And let's see what that does. So there we go. So that's filled in the div tag for us. Now if that was to pass, that's not going to clear, so we'll just take this down here, and if it does pass, then we're going to set it to empty. Just to be clear as well, when you do return false here, it stops the rest of the form from it stops the rest of this function from executing. So once it hits this, it's not going to do this. So it's only going to return false if the field is empty, and then it will stop the form from submitting, and it will return false and not execute the rest of this code. So this is great, but it's not very visually appealing. It's not going to catch your eye. So let's make this the border of this box go red as well, just to experiment with that. So we'll add a style, and we'll add an error style, and we'll make it border 1 pixel solid, and we'll make it red, so FF0000 for RGB. Right, so what we're going to want to do is on error, add this error class to the name input field there. So we'll say document.get element by ID, and we're going to get the name field there, and then we're going to say dot class name equals to error. So that's just going to add the class of error to the name field up here. Let's try that. There we go. So that's added the class. We'll just inspect that and you can have a look. So there it's there, class error. And again, we want to do the opposite of that if it passes. So let's, oh, that's not the right one. This one here. So down here, we're going to say set the class name equal to nothing. Now if we were just to do that at the moment, and if it was to pass, then it would just refresh the form and it would clear anyway. The purpose of this clearing here is if this passes, but something else doesn't, it's going to clear this and it's going to move on to the next error. Right, so next up we're going to count the characters in the text area field. And we're not just going to count them, we're also going to restrict the length, so if you try and type over a certain amount of characters, it will just stop you as you're typing. So in order to do that, instead of using the validate form method, we're going to do on key up, and we're going to declare a new function. So on key up, and then we're going to have a new function, and we'll call that function count characters. So that's saying as every key press on key up, run this function. So let's put that in there. Function count characters. Put curly braces in there, and we're going to want to now grab the value of this. So let's have a look at that. Console.log document.get element by ID. And we're getting the comment field there, and then we're going to get the value from that like we did before, and this time we're going to want to get the length of it, so the amount of characters that are in the string. So we do that by typing .length like that. So you just append that on with a dot, and let's see what that does. So we save that, come in here, let's go over to our console since we're console logging it. So you can see we're getting a number for the amount of characters that are in there, including the spaces. If you take them out, it will go back down again, right down to 0. So we need to display that to the user now. So what we'll do is we'll add another div tag here, give it an ID of counter, and let's default that to 0. So we're going to take this value here that we've got in count characters, and we're going to say document.get element by ID. We're going to get the counter ID, and we're going to set it the inner HTML equals to what we had there before, so the document get element by ID comment, and then we're going to get the value length. So let's have a look and see what that does. So it starts off at 0 because we've put a 0 in there to default to 0, and as we type, it's going to go up and up and up, and that's just going to keep going for as many characters as we put in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try and restrict that length. We'll start off with 10, but we'll set it to once we see that it works, we'll set it to 140 just to mimic Twitter there. Even though I think Twitter's increased its limit recently, but right. So what we're going to do is say if document get element by ID comment dot value dot length is more than, say, 10 characters for now. So this is another new thing for you. You can do it more than or less than, just using this symbol here. So is the length of the field more than 10? And if it is, what we're going to do is we're going to set the field to the same value but restricted to 10 characters. So let's see what that looks like. We're going to say document.get element by ID comment dot value. So we're setting the value of the comment text area here, and we're going to set it equal to the same thing. So we're going to copy this. So we're setting it back to the value again, but instead of just setting it back to the value, which would be strange, we're going to add .substring, and we're going to do 0 to 10. So what that essentially says is set it to the same value, but get the first all the characters between 0 and 10. So it essentially restricts it to 10 characters. Let's refresh this and let's demonstrate that. So as you type over 10, it sets it back to the same value but under 10. That counter's not updated. There we go. I hope that makes sense. So that's quite straightforward. It's just quite a lot to look at the moment. We'll come back and tidy this up because there's quite a lot of repetition going on here at the moment where we're calling the same things. But I'll show you how to clean that up later in another episode. So right, next up, what we've got is we've got the number field here. So we can see there it says number between 1 and 10, and obviously it's a number, so we need to say force this to be an integer, so that you can't have other random characters in there, and we need to say is that integer between 1 and 10. So we're going to do this on key up again. On key up, and we're going to say validate number field, and let's add that function now. Function validate number field. Right. So we're going to force this to be an integer on as you type, and then on submit, what we're going to do is we're going to say display an error message if it's not between 1 and 10. Just so we can demonstrate these different methods. So on key up, let's get get it by class name. Previously we've been using IDs, but I wanted to demonstrate how to grab something by class name. So what we're going to do is we're going to say document.get elements. So notice that's plural, by class name rather than get element by ID. And the class name that we're getting is number. And we need to, because we're using a class, we need to tell it which one to get. So this is a little bit different. We're going to add what's called an array here. We'll go into more depth on what an array is later. But this basically just says get the first one on the page, because programming starts at 0. The counting starts at 0 in programming, so by putting 0 there, we're saying get the first one on the page that is got the class number. If we were to put 1, it would be the second one. If it's 2, it would be the third one on the page. We want the first one that occurs, so that's how to do that. Right, so we want to get the class name, and we want to set the value. And we want to set the value equal to the same thing like we did last time, but we want to force it to be an integer. So let's just put this in here first. So we want to set it back to the value. Let's put that there, and then take that out there, put our semicolon in. So the way we force it to be an integer is we do parse int, and then we put the brace there. So we put that into the parse int built-in function there, and that will force it to be an integer. So let's see how that looks. So if we put numbers in here, that's fine. Start trying to put characters in, it's going to take it straight back out again because it's setting it back to the same value but stripped out to be an integer. So there you go. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to validate it to be between 1 and 10. So we're going to do that in the validate form field here, like we did last time. But we're going to append it in the bottom here, so let's put validate number field as a comment there. It's good to put comments in for stuff like this if it starts getting messy. What we're going to do later on in another episode is we're going to come back and actually tidy a lot of this up. But at the moment we're just going to stick everything in this one validate form function for the onSubmit method. But for now I'm just going to put in a comment there just so we don't get lost. So what we need to do is we need to say, is the number less than 1 or is it over 10? And if it is, we're going to throw an error. If it's not, then we'll let it pass. So the way we do that is we put in another if statement like this. We're going to say document.get element by ID, by class name. And we're going to get the number. And again, we're getting the first one, and we get the value for that. And we say less than 1. So is it less than 1? And then what we can also do is to keep this into the one if statement. We could put another if statement in inside this to say is it over 10, or we can do that, which basically says does this pass or does this pass? So if either of them pass, then go into the if statement. So document get element by class name, number, and we're getting the first one. And we're saying is the value more than 10? So we're saying less than here, more than here. Is it one of these because of this double pipe here? Then we're going to say throw an error message. So we need to have a div for that, just like we did last time. It's not a class, it's an ID. Number error. So leave that empty like we did last time. So the same as we had up here with the name error, we're going to add a number error, and we're just going to essentially do the same thing. So document.get element by ID, number error dot inner HTML. And we're going to set that text now to say number must be between 1 and 10. Put a semicolon in there just to end that line. We're going to add our error message just like we did before. So we did that up here as well. Document.get element by ID. We're getting the number field this time. We're setting the error message, the error class into the number field so that we can get the red box around it. Class name is equal to error, and then we want to stop the form from submitting, so we'll just copy that from up here, like that, and of course it does that. There we go. So what's going on here is the number less than 1 or is the number more than 10? If that passes, if one of these is incorrect, then throw an error message. So we're going to set our inner HTML of our div tag up here, number error, and we're going to add the class error to the input field so that we can get the red around the box, and then prevent the form from submitting. And then what we're going to do is do the same as what we did before, is we're going to reset those fields. So we'll just copy this here, and we're going to put it outside the if statement. Now one problem I've just noticed, before we continue, so we're resetting those fields here, but one problem I've noticed, actually two problems I've noticed, I've called that by ID here, so we're just going to put that in there. So it's actually getting the number field by class rather than ID. And the other problem we've got is because we're using a class here on, where are we, number, because this is a class, and then we're saying set the class name here to error, we're actually going to override this class. Now there's a couple of ways to deal with this, but the simplest way we're going to do is we're just going to add number in here. So this is saying set the class name to have number and error class, rather than just overriding class to say error. And then what we need to do is, when we're resetting this to remove the error class, we just come down here and just put number there. So I hope that makes sense. There is multiple ways to do this, but at the moment we're just going to set it to do that, and then on the reset set it back to just number. So let's demonstrate this now. So if we submit the form with nothing there, we say the name field must not be empty. So let's fill that in, and it's going to move on to the next error now. So the number must be between 1 and 10. So if we put 0, it's not going to validate. If we put 12, it's not going to validate. If we put 5, that's a pass, then it's going to go through. So there we go. Right, so in the next episode what we're going to be looking at is tidying all of this up, because you can see that this is a sea of document get elements by ID. There's a lot of repetition in here, there's not a lot of extraction, and we need to try and pull some of this out into other functions, just to kind of clean this up and stop us repeating ourselves so much. So follow along for that, and drop me a subscribe and a like if you liked the video. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And just before I go, guys, I'd just like to take a second to thank my sponsor, Shopify. Now, Shopify have completely revolutionised the e-commerce marketplace and made things so much easier to do. Previously, if you'd use something like Magento or OpenCart, you know, it's clunky, it's heavy, it's hard to work with, and if you don't know how to use it, then you need to get an expensive developer to work on it. With Shopify, on the other hand, you can have no experience with code, and then go on and create a beautiful looking website and start making money straight away. If you are a developer, then working with it is easy, even if you're just learning. You can modify the templates, so it's great. Follow the link in the description, because that will give you a 14-day free trial, and I also get a little kickback as well. It helps the channel, helps you, helps everyone, and everyone's happy. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.